What did you struggle with at first? Like when you first plugged it in, I assume you love the stock presets.
Well, who doesn't?
For those that don't know, that's a big inside joke with the Helix that no one ever uses the stock presets.
I think okay, so I mean, first of all, I already was past that initial shock of moving to the digital world, right? So Kemper got that out of my system for me, right? So I didn't have that to deal with, which was, I think, probably, a good thing, right? Because
so
you just
no mental hump, no thought process of, oh my God, is this going to be okay?
That's right. Like I know what to expect. Like if I put a set of headphones on with a bone dry amp, it's probably going to sound the same as, any other modeler that's going to do that, right? The fact that I had done a fair amount of studio work previous, I think why I've maybe had a fair amount of success in helping people to kind of approach Helix is I kind of approached it as if I was working in the studio. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Amp, mic. I was familiar with a lot of the mics in the cabs because I'd owned them and I'd used them in a real studio. So, I mean, that's an advantage. Somebody who's never mic'd a guitar cab isn't going to, and I mean, back then, to be fair, we didn't have the movable mics off and on axis and whatnot, right? But even just the distance control was huge, right? Like, yeah. I mean, you could really clean up a ribbon mic by pulling it back 4 or 5 inches or 6 inches or whatever, right? Just like in the real world, right?
It's funny. This is the exact same answer that Richie Castellano gave in different words when I had Richie on first episode, and he said, not that it's a criticism, but one of the things that people get wrong about the Helix is that it works exactly the way it's supposed to.
100%. Yeah, exactly.
And maybe the default settings aren't perfect, but...
Well, they seldom are in the real life when you just throw a mic up in front of the cabinet either, right? So, I mean, So I mean, just starting off by saying, you know what, I'm going to throw like a little room reverb at the end of my chain here, just so that it's there, so I don't feel like I'm playing into an unnatural space, right?
It takes experience to know that.
100%. But so, and I think a lot of people don't do that, and that could very well be one of the reasons why they go, well, this sucks. This sounds terrible.
Yeah, of course.
Here, let me just drop this little subtle and then you suggest that, and people are like, well, I don't like reverb. You're like, well, it's not what I know. I get it, but that's not. I'm not suggesting you like drown it in a cavern, right? It's just like put this on for a second, pull the mix back a bit, just get it so that, and they're, oh wow, that's a lot better. Yeah, because we live in a world of hearing reflections, and it's just the way it is. So you put that there, and then get the and if you've used some of these amps, you kind of have an idea of where to set the tone stack so that it works. Something like a Marshall Plexi, it's not going to be massively influential, right? You can kind of crank things up or whatever, but then get that microphone in there, and then what else do I do in the studio? Well, it's just a lot of times at the end, you put a little subtle compression on it, or I use a little tiny bit of EQ in these frequencies to kind of let things sit better. And, I kind of like a little bit of delay time to the music, tap tempo to the music of the quarter note on certain things. And boom, 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 boom. There it is.
And I think I also think this is what attracts people to third-party impulse responses, is because at first with the stock cabs, somebody that really doesn't know, like you said, that doesn't have that experience, it's kind of like, well, what the hell do these numbers mean? What is a 50? I mean, I assume everybody knows what a 57 is, but why do I assume that everybody knows what a 57 is?
And you know what? What you just said there was one of the biggest awakenings for me. Is I made the assumption going in that, well, everybody knows this or everybody knows that, and you know what? They don't. And that's not sound to talk down to anybody. That's not to. But I mean, honestly, if you've never had the opportunity to get to know certain pieces of information, then you don't know them.
You take your knowledge for granted, but there's so many people out there that are using this stuff that don't have any idea, and that kind of jolts the third-party impulse response push. Like, oh, I've got to, because it also bypasses that experience, because, you go to somebody like York Audio or somebody like you that's actually making these, somebody that knows what they're doing, somebody that knows the mics, that knows the EQ, that knows how to set the stuff up properly. You don't have to learn how to do it.
That's right. It's plug and play, right?